Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is family recovery coach and interventionist Randy Palmer. You have arrived at the Family Strong podcast. This episode is titled, If Your Addicted Loved One is Still Affecting You, You Are Still Affecting Them. Okay, well, thank you for being here. As I said, my name is Randy Palmer. I'm excited about this episode. It's probably been, a year ago, and this saying, it just kind of came to me because it's a constant process and battle of me trying to teach people and help people understand that all is not lost, that it's not over. It's not over. So when this saying, if your addicted loved one is still affecting you, you are still affecting them, I see this as a great thing. I see this as fantastic news for you and your family, because what it means is you can educate yourself. You can better prepare yourself. You can better protect yourself. You can influence them over time with the right tools, the right mindset, the right intentions, and the future is bright. And that is why I say that this is very good news. There's a few principles that I would like to share with you guys today. Before I do, I want to start off with a story. When I was probably, 18, 19, 20, I went to, I moved out of town, worked for a few months, came back. I was living with my sister and hanging out with a friend, and we were running around and smoking pot. And we decided to go to my sister's house, and we went down into her basement, and we were rolling a joint. I honestly have never been good at rolling joints. Had a few friends, it's like an art, I guess. They're really good at it. These are, these fine motor skills that I never had. Anyway, while we're in my sister's house, in the basement, she comes walking downstairs, and of course we act a little bit different to try to hide it, and she picks up on it, and we get into this ritual of, what are you doing, what's going on, are you lying? And finally I just get frustrated and I say, okay, we were rolling a joint, okay, it's just marijuana. Well, she, what I felt like, overreacted, just like melted. I mean, I could have told her it was LSD or acid, and she would have reacted the same, and then I might have been shocked, but I at least understood why she acted that way. Anyway, something happened after this that I hadn't experienced before. She called my father, and my dad asked me to go to his house and talk to him. So on the way over there, I'm going through the routine in my mind of basically the same old conversation. What are you going to do with your life? You can't keep doing this. I raised you better than this. You need to be working, on and on and on. I'd heard it a million times like a broken record. But as I sat down next to him, it was kind of a cool evening, and the stars were out, and there's a little breeze. I remember him being kind of just calm and respectful. And he asked me, what does it feel like? And I was thinking, it's horrible. I don't like sitting here talking to you. I don't like knowing that I've messed up and disappointed you and possibly have to find somewhere to live because my sister said she was going to kick me out. And he says, no, what does it feel like? Pot, marijuana. I've never smoked it. I had some friends that did, but I pretty much kind of stayed away from it. And as he asked that, I saw an opportunity where he actually was wanting an answer. So it took me a minute, but I finally told him it relaxes me. It calms me down. I feel like it de-stresses me. And sometimes it's fun. Sometimes I like listening to music, watching movies. It's just different. It helps me feel different. Sometimes it helps me feel better. And as he sat and just listened, he didn't go right into the typical response where he was just going to let me have it. Well, that's good to know, and I just want you to know that that's not going to be sustainable, and what, and on and on and on and on and on. I've heard it all, and I've said it all, and maybe you guys can relate. But as I tell that story, I can think of several other scenarios where my father reacted out of frustration or anger or confusion. He was a busy man. He worked a lot. My dad worked from Monday morning at 8 a.m. till Saturday night at 8 p.m. my entire life, without missing a beat. I never saw him home during the day unless he was home to beat one of the kids because he kept getting phone calls from my mom. And we used to get the belt. And the thing about the belt was it had an intimidation factor. You know, when you could smack the sides of it together. And, you know, I was smart enough at one point, without getting too off track here, I decided I was going to go downstairs and I put on like 20 pair of underwear, every pair of underwear I could find. And my dad came home and he spanked me with that belt, and I took it and I turned around and I smiled at him as like an 8-year-old kid, and I said, "That didn't hurt." So you can see what he's put up with at this point, up until these moments where he's really challenged by me. And that pattern had continued. But the point is that he affected me, and I affected him. For the first time in my life at that age, when I was using, I felt like he really wanted to get a better understanding of why I was using. He wanted to understand and listen and educate himself to where he could connect with me. And he did. And I'll never forget it. So, parents and children, we all have different patterns of the way we communicate, the way we talk to each other. But I want to share a study with you here. This might surprise you. This surprised me. According to a study, Stanton and Shadish, this is in 1997, which I'm assuming it's only going to be more now with the advent of social media. It says that struggling loved ones remain very closely connected. In fact, even more closely connected than the general population. Averaging several studies, it appears that 9% of non-addicts tend to call their families daily, while addicted persons maintain daily contact with their families at a rate of approximately 57%. 57% in the US, and it goes up even more than that in other countries. That's not a little difference, that's a big difference. So when you hear the term that if your addicted loved one is still affecting you, you are still affecting them, understand that they are affecting you and you are affecting them 5 times to 6 times more than your other children or your other siblings or your other friends or family members. And if there's a connection there between you and them, is there not also an opportunity there? If I could press pause for a moment on your family and the family dynamics and the systems and structures and patterns and habits that have been developed over hundreds of years. There's a tool called a genogram that I use when I do interventions with families. These interventions are non-abrasive, invitational, gradually escalating. Everybody's invited. It's an open discussion or counsel. But in this genogram, we build connections and we build maps and patterns to help the family see that what's happening here is much bigger. Like with me, what was going on with my behavior and my use was much bigger than just me. I had clear insight into the challenges that my parents and their relationship that they were having. I knew that they could not speak about money because I could go to my mom and get money anytime I wanted, and I couldn't go to my dad because he wouldn't give it to me. But I knew there was that loophole there, and I knew I could get through it. And I could go on and on and on from every member of my family and my community, neighbors, extended family, friends, on my observations, how they reacted and responded and treated me through my addiction and through the process of getting out of it. And I can promise you that every single thing that we say and do affects someone who is going through a hard time. It doesn't have to be addiction, right? It can be a mental illness. It can be suicidal thoughts. It can be health. It can be anything. I have found that if a family can shift their thinking, if one individual, maybe you, can do this first and then carry this gift, this message to your other siblings and parents or children, and help instill in their minds, inculcate into their thinking a new belief system, a new thought pattern, a new vision of what's actually happening here, that the opportunity to not only strengthen yourself to where they're no longer affecting you in negative ways, but you have a solid foundation of what your core beliefs are. What is the purpose of pain and suffering and growth, and how does that all happen? To where you're unshakable. But you also have this clear vision of the future of how you can truly affect this person's life, but it's not going to be on your timing. But if a family can go through a couple steps to make this transition, the opportunity is at your fingertips. This person's using because they're hurting. They don't understand, or they're not able to comprehend the fact that they're using only adds to the hurt, but at least at this moment, it's serving some purpose in their life, some sort of relief or pleasure that's helping them cope, that's helping them deal with their experiences in this life for another day. If those that are around them are not being educated about what addiction is, if you or your spouse or a brother who's successful in the family just look at them and shake your head and say they're worthless, it's a choice. Straighten up and fly straight. If you talk about them every chance you get, but you don't talk to them because you don't have time for the drama. If you don't talk about them or talk to them, you've just completely checked out, saying, there's nothing I can do, right? The old rock bottom. Rock bottom is a myth. Rock bottom is a myth. Did you know that I met a family once who was waiting for rock bottom, believing there was nothing they could do to help this person change? And when they decided to move forward, that we went in and met with this family, and within 48 hours, we had this person to a point where they were expressing viewpoints and thoughts and feelings consistent with the principles of rock bottom. Seeking forgiveness, asking for help, desperate. So you don't need to wait for this place called rock bottom. Your family can strategically begin to implement changes and help the entire family make a change and pivot in a new direction. But this direction doesn't have to be one of cutting them off. This doesn't have to be a direction of drawing lines in the sand and making a bunch of unrealistic, unnatural demands that violate all of our natural and basic instincts as humans. Namely, you need to change now or else. If I were in a scenario right now where someone in my family were really struggling and my family was doing what my family did when I was younger, this is what I would do. 1, I would first write down what I truly believe. What I believe about death, what I believe about life, what I believe is the purpose of life. I would then ask myself if I want this person to be my enemy. And if the answer is no, I would make a solid commitment to see them through this, whether on this life or the next. I would then engage with others in my family and invite them to re-engage with a new perspective and a new message of resiliency and consistency and hope for your family member. I would help them accept this person right where they are, meeting them with a mutual respect. Those who are suffering the most are sometimes the most in tune and alert when it comes to discernment. And I can promise you, even though they're stumbling through life, making mistake after mistake after mistake, that they are judging your heart and my heart and our intentions, every interaction that we have with them, and it is influencing them. I am not saying here that we are responsible for their choices, nor is anyone in your family responsible for this specific addiction. But this is not the only addiction in your family, is it? And if you think it is, you haven't learned enough about your family, maybe those who came before you. Because what's happening here is just a small part of a giant system and network that has been growing and evolving for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it is directly linked in more than one way to every experience, every loss, every death, every child born, every relationship that your family has ever had. I would meet them with mutual respect, saying, look, I want to help you. I need you to help me. I would shift from outcome-driven to process-driven. Instead of just asking yourself or focusing on, are they using, drop it for a while. Go a month or two without talking to them about drugs. Try talking to them about something else, anything else. Connect with them again. Understand that they're sick and they're going to be sick for some time, and that's okay because the whole family is sick on different degrees and on different levels, but at the end of the day, everyone is part of this sickness. The good news is, if you can understand this principle clearly, that this is a family disease in the sense that it's a disease of craving. It is not a choice if they can drink or not, or use or not. It's the craving as strong as hunger that they're battling. Understanding that your family can share the responsibility for where you are across the board also invites you and gives you the opportunity to know that your family as a whole is very powerful and very strong. But to tap into that strength and that power, you have to think about it differently. You have to begin to look for that strength and that power and that resiliency. And then you have to share that messaging with your loved one. You have to take every opportunity you get to tell them that you believe in them. You don't have to beat around the bush. You can talk to them directly. Once you stop trying to control their actions and the outcome of their choices and seek to understand them better by asking questions, listening to the answers, and connecting with them, over time you will regain their respect. And potentially theirs is yours. Next, I would invite everyone in your family to have a family meeting or a family council. This can be done on Zoom. This can be done in your home. I can help you with that if you so please. Invite everyone, including your children that are struggling. Be honest. Say, hey, I heard this podcast. I want to just have a discussion about the health and wellness of our family. Whether they show up or not, say, I think that we could do better at supporting each other. There's some things that are happening that we may not agree with, but I want to make it known right now, in this moment, that I love each and every one of you regardless of your actions, and I forgive you for everything you've ever done, and I accept you just the way you are, with your weakness, with the things that are ugly or painful or hurtful about your life. All of it, I accept it in this moment, just the way it is. And I want to invite everyone here to speak with words of hope and expect miracles in the future. Draw your boundaries firmly and directly, but they don't need to become battle lines. They can remain calm, respectful boundary lines. Pray, meditate, fast. Look for synergy. Know that you are not the only ones who are fighting this battle. This is not my story to tell. The program that I went to in Mount Pleasant, Utah, Matter Behavioral Health, a few years after I graduated, a young lady went through there and she lost her battle with addiction, at least on this life. She overdosed and she died. A few years later, her sister also overdosed and died. And when the mother thought about doing another funeral, burying another one of her children, she couldn't do it. And one night, as she was awake, she had a spiritual vision, encounter, message given to her from her daughter that people on the earth don't understand addiction, that we're not responding or treating it the best way that we could, and that there's a group of people assigned on the other side of this veil, in the other life, called the Unseen Army. And the Unseen Army is assigned specifically to help families and individuals with addiction. So know that as someone in your family steps up and takes the lead to start strategically acting and working together with this contact, with this increased contact that people who are struggling have with their parents, that you will not be fighting alone, that there are unseen powers that will be celebrating and matching any efforts that you put in. But it is my belief that none of this can be done if a family is running around, reacting, complaining, distracted, fallen into social norms, believing there's nothing that they can do, offended. There has to be some transition with someone who can start the transition with others to shift this perspective to a place of power and strength and opportunity and options. And that is where the power begins to happen. Everything noteworthy that has ever happened on this earth, anyone who has ever overcome any major obstacle or challenge has always done so with some sense of optimism and excitement and vision. Despite what's happening in that moment, they were seeing something in their mind that didn't yet exist in front of them. And those people, if they can combine that vision and that energy with others, have started some sort of a spark. And we don't get to choose which spark becomes a forest fire, but I know that you have to have a spark to start a forest fire. Something has to happen first. I believe that that spark is you. They're waiting, they're watching, they're suffering, they're observing. They're being prepared. To handle the challenges in the future. And we will need them then, just like they need us now. Please join the Family Strong Facebook group. Please subscribe and share this podcast with friends and family as you see appropriate. I believe in the power of your family. Until next time, this is Randy Paul.